Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all well, in good spirits. Thank you for watching, commenting. Thank you for the comment on my last video. That's what we do it for. In fact, on my last video I was talking about this record by Cam Meslien, or maybe it's Melien, Fantôme Future, which is a modern classic, like a kind of like modern Henri Texier kind of record. And this guy actually put a comment on my video. I was like, you know, so that was really cool. So, you know, sometimes you get a nice surprise like that. You get the artist talking to you directly. That was just a really great surprise. I was stoked about that. But yeah, again, if you haven't heard this record, it's on Heavenly Sweetness. It's just a beautiful bass odyssey of, you know, just it's gentle, it's multi-layered. It's, if you like the Henri Texier records, notably Amir, this is not a million miles away from it. So, you know, it's just beautiful bass double bass centered, you know, ambient jazz. But I don't know how to describe this. You know, listen to it. Anyway, this is a new installment of Revolutions. I'm gonna get going. I have 20 or so records as usual, and I'm trying not to go too long, or Alan will tell me off in his one of his puppet videos. You know, I told him that I promised him that now I would shorten my videos to only 85 minutes. So we'll see how that goes. This is Wednesday afternoon, the 8th of Feb, and I came home from work, and I played a couple of CDs, because I do play lots of CDs. I have, you know, probably, I don't have as many CDs as I have records, but, you know, I've got a wall of CDs as well. And I revisited this beautiful album by Yola Tango called Fade. This came out in around 2013 or 12. And whilst not considered one of the best efforts by Yola Tango is a band from Hoboken in New Jersey. They're now, I think, a three-piece led by Ira Kaplan. And they specialize in more sort of like lo-fi indie pop, you know. They're I reckon, one of the stalwarts of indie music in America, along with Sonic Youth and Pavement. I think you could put Yola Tango in that box as well. You know, this is not I Can Hear the Heart Beating as one, or And Then Nothing Turned Itself Inside Out, or Painful, which are the high watermarks. It's a nice album, and very lovely indie pop, very easily listenable, you know, something that I've had for years, and not something that I would pull out very often. I also pulled out another classic indie rock record from the 90s. This is Harmony by Sebado. Sebado is the Lou Barlow side project, where after he left Dinosaur Jr., he formed Sebado in the Folk Implosion. And Harmony is probably one of their best 2 or 3 albums. It's really, again, lo-fi, indie pop, indie rock. I highly recommend Sebado if you've never. It's just typical 90s US indie rock. And Lou Barlow's songwriting is really, every time, so captivating. His songs are melodic and catchy, but also there's this kind of a tinge of melancholy in his voice. I met Lou Barlow once after a gig, and I had a chat with him, and he actually signed some of my records, not this one, but it was cool to meet him. Okay, continuing with some indie rock, so some indie rock bracket. This is a classic Australian indie pop record from 1991. This is The Clouds. The band's called The Clouds, with Penny Century. This is the name of the album. Now, this is an absolute 5-star classic indie pop record from the 90s. It's got sort of Sundays lush kind of vibe. If you know lush, I wouldn't go Cocteau Twins. It's more like, you've got this. It's that sound, the Pixies, lush, the Sundays. Again, I was talking about the 480 sound. Maybe a poppier version of that. And it came, as I said, it's a band from Sydney, and this is a top five all time sort of like 80s, 90s indie rock. If you like the Go Betweens and all these kinds of bands, that's just it's female fronted vocals. Um, Penny Century, don't hesitate. It's just been reissued. It's fabulous. Um, in a different style, from 1984, I spun my copy of Fried by Julian Cope. Julian Cope, the leader, obviously, of the Teardrop Explodes, Liverpool legends, arguably creators of one of my all-time favorite records, Kilimanjaro, especially Side A, which is it's just an explosion of alternative pop, basically. And this is his. I don't know if it's his debut solo. I think it is his debut solo record, 1984. I think it would be. And it's very much, as the cover indicates, very much madcap laughs territory. Channeling his own inner Sid Barrett. You take too much acid. Listen to Renard the Fox, the opening track, or Sunspot, which is the fifth track on side A, to give you an idea. This is new wave-ish. I'd say NeoSacadelia. Like NeoPsych. It's a really great album. Just give it a listen. I love his voice, Julian Cope. And in a not too dissimilar vein, I spun Todd by Todd Rundgren, the tortured genius founder of the Nas. This is a very interesting album. It's an album of, it's a double album, so there's quite a bit of filler there, but the good songs are really great. And I'm a fan of this period, Todd Rundgren, and I love also the other album that I've got by him, which is the ballad Runt, the ballad of Todd Rundgren. These are the albums that I really relate to more than, say, A Wizard, A True Star. But this, approach with I think I'd say approach with caution, because whilst there's these flashes of genius, there are also moments where I don't know where he's going for. This is an album from 1974, but it's art pop. It's a beautiful art pop record. I'm talking too much already. Speaking of which, here is a bracket which I will call ambient pop, art pop, synth pop from the 80s. And I was prompted to revisit this because it is the actual story of why. I've got in my study, I've got a great big wall of magazines like Mojos and like all sorts of Wire. And sometimes I just pick a magazine randomly and open it and just give me some inspiration, information. And I found there was a 2006 issue on talking about Talk, which is, one of my favorite 80s band, if not like, top 3 80s. It's such a great band, so inventive. All the albums are essential, except maybe the first one. This has been for a long time, I think, my favorite Talk album, The Color of Spring, because it mixes their pop, synth pop leanings with their yet to be conceived, avant-garde sort of post-rock leaning. So it's the middle point, and every song is a winner. Happiness is easy. I don't believe in you. Life's what you make it. Living in another world. Give it up. Like, this is loaded with amazing songs. So the magazine I opened had just a little feature on this album again. And I thought, well, let's play it. It's fabulous. And It's one of these albums which I would say you have to own this album because it's that good, it's that great. Then it prompted me to continue into a sort of a synth pop bracket, and I pulled out Vienna by Ultravox, classic again, the mid-Euro version of Ultravox. And there's a track on this which I always come back to. It's Mr. X, which is very much like a Kraftwerk type of track. It's really driving and, you know, sort of in dynamic, in a sort of repetitive kind of a way. You know, beautiful track, and obviously Vienna, the title track. But this is a classic back to front, and I would say Cheap Heat, something that you can find for not much, and just this is from 1980, yes, absolutely. And then I continued with this, which is a beautiful ambient pop, but it's more like a modern classical record. This is Virginia Astley from Gardens Where We Feel Secure. I don't know if you'll see that. Virginia Astley, English singer-songwriter, composer, very much in the ambient Brian Eno vein. Lots of very beautiful piano, oboe, sound, collage, a bit of you know, like found sounds from outside. You know, recording the outdoors. This was originally released in 80 or thereabouts, 80, 81. No, 83, excuse me, 83. It's an original pressing on Rough Trade. Not easy to come by these days, but it's a beautiful pastoral ambient record, and it really is worth having, but you need to concentrate. It's not an album that you can forget in the background. Continuing with classic UK synth pop, sophistipop as they call it too, Roxy music with Avalon. I mean, that too is loaded with. This is one of the great classics of Roxy music, and even you could say maybe it's the best album. You know, it's the most kind of like direct kind of album. We are firmly into a UK pop, synth pop territory, early 80s, 1982, with More Than This, you know, India, and the main thing, beautiful songs. Just Brian Ferry, really a vintage version of Brian Ferry. And yeah, not exactly the same band, but just an excellent. And you know what I love about this? It's like you can see by the cover that they've actually changed direction entirely. They don't have a semi-naked woman on the cover, which, you know, don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining, but it's a change of direction clearly. Again, same vein in the synth pop, art pop vein. I cracked out my copy of New Romantic by Yukohiro Takahashi, and I believe he passed away fairly recently. This is very much like a Japanese David Sylvian kind of record. For me, David Sylvian, a little bit of so I said, yeah, Japan, a little bit of maybe things like Thomas Dolby, or I don't know where I'm going with this. This record here, which I've got on my feet there. This band here, very much in that vein. What's that band again? I'm completely The Associates. I've been working all day long. I'm sorry. I'm like, oh, yeah. But that's the kind of, you know, sound you get there. This is a beautiful record, and which you can, I think, still get for cheap. I mean, like in Melbourne, you can find these for not very much for a while. It is a record from 1981. It's obviously on Alpha record, made in Japan, and it's very, very, you know, smooth kind of art pop. Listen, I'm sorry about The Associates. I know who The Associates are. I'm just my mind is completely fried. Um, I'm a teacher too. I just talk all day long, and I'm talking again. Um, okay. Oh, actually, before I show this one, um, in to finish off that kind of bracket of UK synth pop, or art pop, I also cracked out my copy of the Blue Nile's Peace at Last, which is the Blue Nile third album, um, which is really an album of two halves. The first half is acoustic. They've gone away from the synth, and I mean, Hats and Walk Across the Rooftop are just classic albums. Like you again, like they must own practically. I still have my copy of Rooftops is there in front of me. I love it. I love this album. This is different. It's more, it's got a more acoustic guitar bass, and the first, like Happiness and Morning and Sentimental Man, very catchy songs. Then it goes into more, I don't know, forgettable territory. But I like this album. It's from 1996, the Blue Nile, Scottish band. Uh, and then continuing with a bit of electronic music, synth wave, I guess. Here is an obscurity from Australia. So David Chesworth with No Particular Place, which is a soul album by the leader of the band Essendon Airport. Essendon Airport. I happen to actually have a CD of Palimpsest in front of me. Essendon Airport, a band from Melbourne, classic synthwave band, post-punk band from the late 70s. If you've never heard Essendon Airport and you're into post-punk, and especially post-punk with synths, like, you are going to be in for a really superior kind of discovery, because they're a great band. And it's a band that I discovered when I first arrived in Australia about 20 years ago on a comp. It was like a post-punk comp, and the name, because it's an airport, Essendon Airport, it's sort of, you go, oh, that's interesting, and listen to How Low Can You Go, which is one of their famous tracks. This is much in the same vein as that, post-punk, but more synthy. Yeah, it's kind of a synth pop album as well, but it's a more, less mainstream one, if you will. This is very hard to find, though. It's an expensive record. So it was on Rough Trade and Music Land from 1980. I want to say 81, 82, thereabouts. David Chesworth. And not the same vein at all, but here is a newly reissued record, Twin Cosmos, Double Action. So this is on Left Ear Record. I keep talking about Left Ear Record, Melbourne label, specializes in reissues of obscurities from everywhere, and they reissued this like in 2022, and it's basically twins. Okay, so I'll just take the booklet out to show you. So these two guys there you go. You can see them there. They're twins. Their names are. I don't know. I've forgotten. Morihito Hito, and his brother is called Yasuhito Hito. There they are. And they play all the instruments, and they get a side each. It's very ambient, very, a sort of instrumental, kind of a little bit avant-garde, ambient folk, synth. I don't know what you would call this. They're just like lovely sides of instrumental ambient music, but with, each brother plays a side and plays everything, and it's really quite good. I'm talking too much. Okay, I'm going to continue with an album that I was playing this morning when I woke up. It is something that is a bit of an obscurity as well. The band is called Sunray. Sunray, let's show you that. You can see live at the Thornbury Theatre, which is a place I know quite well, because it's not far from not this house, but My girlfriend lives very near it, so I spend a lot of time walking by the Thornbury Theatre. Um, and Sunray was a modern classical ensemble, which very similar in style with things like Hanya Rani, Niels Fram, and the Kronos Quartet. That's the sound. Lots of violins, oboe. No, what have they got? Cello, viola, violin, vibraphone. So the chick that is in behind this, her name is Ray Howell. Hence it's called Sun Ray, and harp, double bass, drums. So you get this beautiful lush chamber jazz. That's what it is. It's minimal music meets chamber jazz. I don't know how easy it is to find this, but maybe on Spotify you might be able to listen to it. They've got 2 or 3 albums. They're beautiful, 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 like nice early morning music. If you like the sound of modern classical music with like violins and like lots of beautiful piano, you love this. Um, and it reminded me also of Mammal Hands, the English, the UK jazz band. Um, a bit of John Fahey was played last week. A Blind Joy Death, I think it's his first album or thereabouts. This is obviously a later reissue, Tacoma. Yeah, I mean, I've been talking in the past editions of Sandy Bull and, American primitivism, the mix of, bluegrass, modern classical, all that. So I don't think I'll talk about this very much, but it's a beautiful record. It's an instrumental guitar record. Very intricate, very beautiful music. Again, to describe American primitivism is quite difficult. Just listen to it. A jazz slash world segment here. Vieux Fakature, Les Racines. It's his latest album. It's the son of Alifakature. He's also a prodigiously gifted guitar player. And he did an album with Krung Bin last year, which I also have, but I think this one is the better of the pick of the bunch. I'm going to see Alifakature next month. Vieux Fakature next month. So I'm looking forward to this, and I'm excited. So I'm playing his record, and hopefully the show is amazing at the Northcote Social Club. This is just lovely, delicate Malian music, a little bit of that griot tradition, just lovely, spiritual guitar music, just, very engrossing. Here is a reissue from last year of an album that never came out, or I think came out on cassette in 1979 in Egypt. This is Maha, and the album is called Orkos. This is a traditional take vocal album by Maha, who was in the Salah Ragab Cairo jazz ensemble. She was in the band, and she is a vocalist, and on here she infuses some funk, disco, soul, a bit of Latin kind of vibe with the Arabic tradition. That's all I can say to you to describe this one, because really you would have to listen to it. But it's on Habibi Funk, the label, the German label, and they never really release anything that's subpar. It's really good. A little bit of funk and soul to funkify your life. Lee Fields, a great release from last year on Daptone, the Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings label, amongst others. And Lee Fields is long catalogue of, he's been releasing stuff since like the 60s, I want to say. And they got him to do an album for them, which came out just last year, Sentimental Fool. Very Daptone sounding, very like lots of horn, very funky, and bouncy and joyful, and as at the same time a little touch of tinge of melancholy in his voice. But the band is kick ass. They're just like lots of like flutes, saxes, and double bass, double bass. Everything and anything goes. Great record. Okay, a little bit of a jazz bracket, a mini jazz bracket, a few more records. If you're still with me, you're a hero, or a martyr, or a fool. Um, a little while back, I picked up this record in a local store in Melbourne. This is Juma Sultan's Aboriginal Music Society, and it's called Whispers from the Archive. This is a record that was, I think, recorded sometime in the 70s, 1978. Features a band with oboe, percussion, piano, saxophone, percussion, bass, and guitar. And James Blood Alma is on guitar on this one. And it is a, majestic, really spiritual jazz record. Like, it's really very captivating. If you like spiritual jazz, and there's so many titles you could reel off there that are similar to this kind of vibe. But if you like even on a basic level, if you like Ferry Sanders or the spiritual Coltrane, this will appeal to you in some ways. It's not a cheap record. It was very limited reissues, and this was reissued around 2012. Yeah, so I just recommend that you take a listen to it. I mean, don't go buy this just blindly. It's a beautiful record, but you may not need it. On this topic, I think I'm going to make a video of my thoughts about record collecting. Somebody asked me. I think I might try, but I'll see how I go. I may offend people, and I will lose subscribers. When I was in France in 2022, in my hometown, there's a tiny little record store, and you can always find these amazing bargains. I was talking about the Kraftwerk album that I found last. I found the second Zo record, the French jazz rock band. Their first album is at Orange. Maybe I also have this one. Oh yes, I do. Magical. This is their first album, Zo. They're a French jazz rock band. I mean, I call them the French Blood, Sweat and Tears just to make it simple. I'd never seen the second album, and it was just there on the wall for cheap. I think it was 20 euros or something. There was no turntable in the store. I thought I'll just take it home, and it's really fabulous. It's very much like in the vein of Chicago, Blood, Sweat and Tears. There's a lot of singing in English on this, but all the same, very, very beautiful record, and not essential by any means, but nice. It's called Hard Time, Good Times. A couple more. Shout out to my friend Amos. Amos, if you're watching, you watch. Amos and I. Amos lives in Melbourne, and we were going for a dig fairly recently, and he said he just put this in my hands, and I mean it's a record that I knew by out of the cover, but I thought he said he was so passionate about it. I thought I'd pick up a copy. It's great. It's very like 70s jazz fusion, in your face, balls to the floor, kind of Miles Davis, Electric Miles from the 70s, or Herbie Hancock. Fantastic workouts, amazing album. Very highly recommended. Sisto by Masabumi Kikuchi, who I've got other albums by. A couple more. I spun this Art Pepper and 11 a couple of days ago. What to say about this, apart from the fact that it's it's one of these essential jazz records. I think if you know it, you know it. This is the Kraft recordings repress, which sounds great. yeah, I'm not going to say too much about this one. And the last one uh, is one of the tone poets from last year, Harold Vick stepping out. Great organ work at this record. I love the Harold Vick on his Strata East. The gold cover. The name escapes me right now, but you'll know. He's with his sax on, and the cover is gold. I've got it somewhere there. It's on Strata East. I love that record, and I didn't have much else about with Harold Vick on, but this record here is really quite interesting. As I said, it's got more like a Jimmy Smith kind of real vibe with a bit of his trademark sax on top of it, but it's John Patton on organ. Yeah, fantastic. Anyway, everyone, I hope you enjoy this installment, that I was not rambling too much. And talk to me. That would be fabulous. Um, you know, that's what we do it for. Sharing the passion, loving the music, and it's not records. It's a means to an end, but it's music. It's music. Whatever it is, whatever it happens to be.